flexibility. How do you motivate younger generation for learning business capabilities, which is required for the future?
So I'll just add my thought and then maybe my co-panelist
Yeah,
can respond.
please.
Uh, One point I already said, we can't be using traditional models of training uh, for our younger workforce. The younger workforce is mobile, is, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
All of us. Are we really referring to something which is happening in your organization? That is what we're interested in knowing because this is
right,
something we've read all over. All
right.
the articles in HR and books, wherever we read, all these things are available.
Sure,
Sure.
sure,
So what
sure.
we are
Point well
discussing
taken.
is not making the whole session interesting. Let me, if you allow
Point
me
well
to speak
taken.
like that. If
Sure,
you can go back to your organization, draw from there, and share their experience,
sure.
that will
Good
add a lot
point.
of value to this.
Okay,
Thanks.
okay. So one point which I wanted to put it out very clearly. Attention span of the people, the younger workforce is going down drastically. Earlier in our organization, we used to hold one-day sessions, two-day sessions on various capability development or programs. Now, given the attention span, given the feedback which we were getting, now in our organization, not more, not more than 1% of the programs are being handled for a complete day. These are only small capsules, say of 2 hours or 4 hours, which we are doing. There's more of e-learning program, the Coursera, which was talked of. We are also subscribe to that. And we try to train our people uh, and take on interns who can take on training as one part-time work, and then impart those skills to others. So I think there are various ways of reaching out. Our younger workforce is more aligned to sharing, collaboration. So we have tried to create portals where they can share their ideas. There are blogs which we have tried to create. So those are the things which our younger force enjoy, and they want more and more of that because that is where they feel they can express themselves better.
Let me address that issue of yours, which you said personal experiences. I work for GMR Group. If you happen to know that GMR was a construction company till 2004. And only in 2004 they started bidding for the Delhi airport. And the first bid was Delhi airport and the second bid was for Hyderabad airport. And you will be surprised that not even his chairman for himself was aware of what the airport industry background is all about. Somebody said the apron area, when I joined in 2006, I came from manufacturing industry. I was taken as the first of PPP model, 11,000 crores of investment. I said, let me be a good challenge for me to walk in as a CHR of that company and build the organization. At that point of time, that level of ignorance was to that level that when people say, let's go down to apron area, I said apron is a area cloth, normally women's wear at the kitchen area. So that's a level of ignorance. But we subsequently realized that it is not the apron which we are talking about cloth, it's the apron where the aircrafts are getting parked. And apart from that, there was a terminology used as PAPI. So somebody said, what is PAPI? I said, if somebody must have committed a sin, that's why they are calling PAPI. He said, no, it's a pilot and path auto indicators. Getting my point? So those terminologies are very, very different. So with that background, we walked into the airport premises. We started operating from in a barrack office with around 15, 20 people, and we started learning the processes. And we created a system, and we visited ourselves, a whole core team of CXOs visited more than 35 airports personally. And we tried to pick up best of the best at each of the airports. And we said, okay, fine, if we had to create an airport, what kind of an airport we should build? Normally an airport of this magnitude and this size of 35 million capacity takes 5 years, minimum 5 years. Whether it's talk about Changi T3, or we talk about Heathrow Airport, or you talk about Beijing Airport, all have taken more than 5 years. We have delivered that airport in 38 months. With the people, those who doesn't know the ABCD of the airport. And apart from that, Airport Authority of India people, those who are having a monopoly, are having the knowledge, were remained with us only for 3 years during the OMDA agreement as an operational agreement. Beyond that, they never wanted to be part of us because of certain benefits. Only 144 people requested to be part of DIAL. Remaining 3,000 people requested them not to be part of the DIAL. We said, welcome that. We built the people. We put them onto areas of trainings. We picked up the best of the best knowledge. As I said, we visited the airports and we started clicking the photographs, and each of the airport, you won't be surprised, we clicked 500 plus photographs. Myself, 500 plus air practices of different airports we capture ourselves to show to people this is how the airport should be. And we put the people onto training, ranging from 3 days to 6 months to even 1 year also. At Malaysia, at Fraport, at Germany, at Beijing, at Hong Kong, at Changi, at Singapore, they were our partners. And today, I'm surprised, and I really feel pride that we are consistently number 1 for the last 3 years, the number 1 airport of the country, of the world. None of them having any experience of airport background. Today, if you want me to build airports across, probably I have the capabilities. But at that point of time, nobody has thought about building the aircraft building capability. Honestly speaking, it's the people who makes the difference. We had a Commonwealth Games. We delivered almost in 38 months. 60 months project delivered in 38 months. We compromised a little bit on cost in terms of putting the carpets instead of Italian marble, or putting up the parking area in front, whereas it should be underground, the multi-level car park, which is coming in front. That's the compromises which we did, but we never affected the quality and the service standards of the airport. So I think it's the will, the vision, and the capabilities which you want to demonstrate. We never said we are building airport. None of the CXOs, chairman, vice chairman said we are building airport. We always have only one vision, that we are creating a gateway of India where every Indian citizen should take pride of. And today, Delhi Airport is not for DIAL. Delhi Airport is not for GMR. Delhi Airport is for each one of us who is sitting in this room. And it's the people who have made it to happen. Thank you. Just to respond to that experience. I think story has some more impact. So I said, let me share that story without though I'm compromising on my timelines. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Capability, as I said.
That's given. You couldn't have actually achieved it without building capabilities.
Sure.
I wanted to know, how did you do it? Because we are talking about capability building, we are talking about talent management. This is a discussion which was happening from the beginning. So how did you achieve it? Because we have come here to learn from you. So that's not coming out. That was my concern. That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. My next question is let's get into the solutions. Let me get into the solutions. Which capability should be prioritized in general? I'm talking about, not in specific. And how do we develop it?
Which capability?
For future. The
For
landscape
future.
I have defined, the changing technology, disruptive innovations, a lot of focus on digital India, making India, scale India. How do we really address those landscape? And what kind of priorities should be focused, and how do we do it?
Okay. So I think one thing which I don't know whether you call it a capability or not, is the ability to be flexible and to adapt to change really fast. Because that's something that we're going to encounter throughout. The other one, I think, is so if you look at data, they're now training, many more training programs for the frontline than they used to be a year earlier. So people are looking at building frontline leaders. So because it's going to be a younger workplace in some time, so how do you build capability for the frontline leaders? I think leadership still remains, functional still remain. However, it is going to be very dependent on the organization. The one thing which has changed is that you're going to build capability through people, vis-a-vis, just give them some capability. So I think that might change. So that's what I think.
Pooja?
I think before we go into the capability specifications, so while in my organization, when we're talking to the senior team, or when we're talking about anything, and the biggest challenge is that, as we all know, the VUCA world is like the VUCA, all you hear is about this. But so anything that, the philosophy that we like to think about when we're talking about any challenge is the reverse VUCA, which we think that, to tackle the VUCA world or take the organization forward, we think that, it's very important to have the vision, very important to make it clear. So the vision is very important. What we say, clarity. So while we have the vision, where we have to go, the clarity is that we should definitely, share this with the whole organization down to every level. So communication is very important.
You for understanding.
Hmm?
You for understanding.
You for understanding, absolutely. I was
C-
trying to see, like, yeah.
C for
so
clarity.
clarity and
A for,
agility.
agility or adaptability.
Absolutely. So that's what we really try to focus on. And it's very important. And one of the things that apart from capability in the positive way, what we really try to build up in people, very important for us as an organization, is the ability to take failure. As an organization, we like to be very tolerant towards failure, and that's to bring in the whole, the focus on innovation.
Sure.
So when our people fail, we do not kind of, as long as they've tried, we encourage failure. We like to, when we are interviewing people and talent or selection or recruitment, we like to get people who have more resilience. So apart from like capability, taking it forward, we like to see these competencies in people, ability to innovate, adaptable, resilience. So these are like our basic foundation before we think about the next level of building capabilities. And so and for capabilities, it's really organization to organization.
So I think there are several dimensions on the organizational capability, and while there could be talent, innovation, efficiency, customer centricity, there are a lot of dimensions to it. But to me, I think talent is the key part where it makes the whole lot of difference. If we have to right people, I think the processes, the technology, all those decisions will get happened in a seamless manner. And I think many organizations which I have worked in, it is talent has always got the priority, because they are, if we have the right set of people, then the right set of decisions start flowing in, the right set of culture starts building in. And culture in any organization, which is so crucial. I think Mr. Kaushal earlier in the previous session was talking about culture. A lot of initiatives taken, but culture is not in place. To me, I think it is the backbone. And for any kind of change management to happen, which again is one of the organization capability, culture is something which has to be driven from the top. Yeah. And that makes a whole lot of difference.
Sure. Before I do the summing up, I would like to have concluding remarks for each of the panelists. So I'll start. Yeah? Anybody? I just want concluding remarks from my friends first, and I'll open the house for the question answer. Nasreen, on the subject, anything which comes up.
Okay, so I think I'm going to share about how I'm seeing the change come into the way capability building is being designed, the training especially. So there was this organization which is into, it's a retailing system. It has shops all over India, like a retail store. And they wanted to do training in customer services. Earlier, how training in customer services used to happen is that you used to be called, there used to be a training calendar, and they used to take X number of people off the shop floor. You went for training, you did 2 days classroom training, and you came back, and then there was also a quiz by the end of it, and that's how it was done. This time, there was between the head of customer service and the head of L&D, and the head of L&D is a friend of mine, that's how I got to know. They still haven't published results of it, but what they decided to do was, let's see, the stuff we've been talking about from the beginning, that, there's technology and the kids are very different and all of that. They said, let's see if the training can be owned and run by the people on the floor. So they designed a kind of, if any of you have played games, there's something called a leaderboard. You play a game and you get a score, and then there's a leaderboard, who's the first, and the leaderboard keeps changing and all that. So they said, what we want you to do is that each time a customer comes to you and you handle a customer's issue, the more issues and solutions you put on on a particular place, which was like a common knowledge pool, you get a point on your leaderboard. And of course, they ran it like a campaign for a month. And what started happening was, from all locations across India, people started sending out whatever issues customers were facing and how did they handle the customer. What they also did was that there was so-called a person who was checking the response of how they had handled that customer. And they said in the end of 30 days, they had about something like 4,000 questions and answers of not answers, but ways of which people handle customers. And why it was going on increasing was because the name used to show up. Today on the leaderboard, end of the day, so-and-so, this region is number 1. Second day, this person is number 1, number 2, number 3. And they were allocating points just like in a game. And of course, what they're saying is they ran it for 6 months. They have a repository of 17,000 questions and answers of how to handle customers. The people own it much more because they are the ones who've put the questions up there. So the content has been developed actually by them. And they are using it. So online, they have now created a system by which there are quizzes online. And again, you answer. So the format has changed to a 1-day face-to-face training, followed by a quizzes on that, and you compete in the competition. So Deepak, what I'm seeing is it's going to change from not being only face-to-face. Face-to-face is not going away, like somebody had asked, is the human touch going away? So it's not.
No.
That's not going away, but it is going to change to a mixture of using all of this. And as I say, everything becomes like an app.
Sure.
So I think that's one.
Yeah, please.
Just a couple of points when we talk about capabilities. One is that from my personal experience, I've realized that training can never be just driven by HR. You have to kind of partner with the business. You have to partner with managers, line managers at every point. It has to be more cultural activity that you want to motivate people to get trained. Second is with this younger generation, they're not in a classroom. They're not going to just get trained. They have to be empowered. They have to be motivated and inspired to be trained. They won't even do it. The moment you say, do this, the reflex action is, I will not. So you cannot drive them to change. They have to be very motivated. And like Nasreen said, that it has to be more of a, for lack of any other word, dupe them into learning. Game or whatever, just that. So these are two of my experiences which are there. The third one is that, which is coming from practical experience. So my current organization, we are a core manufacturing organization. So with a lot of HR struggles, all my life I've been in HR and always had this thing that, HR was we drive training, we are kind of getting frustrated. Nobody understands why we are going to do this. So now, especially in this group, in 2 of our companies, we are a group of 19 companies, we have allocated training on the shop floor to the production manager. He drives it. We are the enablers. He drives it. So that's another experience that I can share, and we'd like to happy to talk more over lunch or anything.
Ajay, before I take over.
Yeah, so I think in a summary, I would say for any organization capability program, 3 things are very important. One is the business focus. The other would be agility. And the third would be the alignment. For any program to succeed, it has to have a business need, it has to have a purpose. And the alignment is brought about by, as you would all know, the matrices, the KPIs, the balanced scorecard approach. There are a lot of approaches which I have personally experienced, and those have really helped in aligning the performance of the people with the organization performance. And the most important part is the agility, where things are changing so fast, and before you invent something, design something, the perspectives are changed, and the whole product cycle has to go to a different level altogether. So agility in terms of agile processes, agile tools, agile way of working, I think those are the ways where capability can be better developed.
Just to sum up, I'll come to you. Just give me 2 minutes and then I'll definitely. After having a discussion, I think my conclusion is that there is a need for HR transformation. As HR, we need to really look at, reflect back, introspect. Are we really doing the right kind of things which is required for building the tomorrow's capability or the future capability at the first place? We have to ask 4 questions to ourselves, as Ajay said. Why we are doing it at the first place? What we are going to achieve and what is my objective? And objective is has to be kept in mind. Third thing is how we are going to do it. The modus operandi. I think that is very, very important. As I said, probably we 6 or 8 of CXOs visited almost 35 airports and clicked the best practices across more than 500 pictures for various activities, and then brought it back and put some value adds. as to what we should do it for our requirements. This is the world best. What is our best should be. So then try to do the gap assessment and try to build up that gap over a period of time. If not, you don't have it, buy it. If you don't buy, borrow it, steal it, but you must have it. That's what is required. And lastly is, who is going to take the ownership? Is it HR, or is it the line manager and the CEO or the COO himself? I think that definition is a very important to have a clarity as to who's going to lead this whole transformation process. We need to have a systematic and strategic, holistic approach to deal with the issues. We need to have been very, very firm in inclusiveness. Inclusiveness of the people is very important. We need to have integrated approach, and we have to have innovative way of thinking. We cannot go with the past. Past can give you some data, but your present and future should be dependent on your innovative thinking. Must look at HR team composition itself. How many people you have, what is their capability? Have structure in place. Structure in terms of routine structure, which is for the day-to-day maintenance, and another structure for the future. So have the structure in place, have innovative practices around, create a system, because system is going to take care of not the people per se. It should not be people-driven, it should be system-driven. We have to have a clear-cut processes defined. We have to have a communication strategy as well. Communication is very, very important. Subodha said in the morning, S.K. Bhargava, that we need to communicate, communicate, and communicate, and that is going to be the key for success for tomorrow. Our focus should be on building capabilities, whether we should buy capabilities, whether we should build the capabilities at the academic level itself in the last year before they pass out. We need to work and partner with the academic institutes so that we get the right people at the right place and with the right frame of mind. Or we have a time, if we have a time, we can buy and build also. We need to partner ourselves with the line managers for delivery. We cannot take everything on our shoulders. We need to work around enablers, which includes setting up the right culture. And we also need to have regularly measuring success factors mechanism. A tool is required. You cannot say, I have done everything, but is the operation successful? Patient died. That situation should not happen. Some successful companies which has been some role models which I can talk about, IBM, Google, UPS, Apple, Walmart, Federal Express. Learn the stories, how they carry out their journey, what kind of transitioning they had. I think you will get an immense data. And more so tracing from Google, I think it's important to talk to the people of those companies. They will get you the real insight, because Google doesn't convey the messages. It's the people touch which is important. And last and most thing is, as you said, personal touch, technology touch, E-touch, P-touch, which is more important. I think it's like in a USA debating at one point of time 50 years back, whether with the mobile phone coming up, whether the landline will exist or doesn't exist. But both are existing as of today. Even as of today, in India as well as in US. Both the things are very important and both are serving their own purposes. I think P-touch, E-touch, both are important, and P-touch cannot replace the E-touch. Thank you very much. Now I leave the house open. Maximum 4 questions because we are running out of the time. We can catch up the facility members. Don't allow them to go out of this building till the time your answers are being addressed. Okay? That freedom and liberty you have. Yeah. You can ask any of the panelists.
Yeah, actually, this is an open question to all of you.
Please.
We are talking about agility. We are talking about increasing productivity, optimizing the resources that we have. My question is there any quantifiable approach for the training part? When we are trying to train means probably the first level, then the second level, but how are we ensuring that the implementation is happening which addresses the agility needs? Is there any matrix? Are we quantifying them anyhow? Or is there a plan, even with the app, means the gamification part of it, is there a way of capturing those data points?
I can do that.
Do that. Otherwise,
I would like to know the answer to this
I'll
also
ask.
when we have a more comprehensive
No,
answer.
no, I'll
But what we've just kind of attempted is that, after every training, before and after, we do have like a before and after. So when we have the training, especially the short term, we are looking for like what is the difference that is coming, especially for, like it's easier to have more on the tangible skills. But the softer skills is always a challenge. And I feel that many times capability is a lot to do with the softer skills. So we do have a before and after. We see what are the changes that we see. Because again, having worked with engineers and more of these kind of people, I've realized that everything has to be quantified. So we do ROI. And we can't just push it like that. But yes, we do have a before and after.
At Lenco, I'll talk about the success story because we do have a matrix called LEO framework. LEO framework is our competency framework wherein each of the dimension, like LEO, L stands for leadership, E stands for entrepreneurship, O stands for ownership. In each of them, we have 8 subsections, different dimensions, 8 dimensions. And then we have given a weighted average for their set of behaviors, which is demonstrated at the workplace. Now, it is for the line manager and the 360-degree feedback by the supervisors concerned and the HR and the concerned CEO of the business to reflect upon whether there is an improvement over the last score vis-a-vis this year's score. And this is monitored every quarter at our level. So we appreciate that not every behavior changes in every quarter, but some positive indications just comes in how much the person is receptive. If the person is receptive, probably we can have more focus, more inputs, downloads, and if the focus is not there, probably we need to revisit the basics itself. So those kind of activities we do have in a matrix called LEO framework, and we are monitoring it on a regularly basis. If not quarterly, probably half-yearly is religiously followed.
Just a small addition to that.
Yeah.
Are we mapping the managerial competencies after the trainings are getting over?
Sure.
Because most of the time we are expecting the managers to cascade it further, or probably expecting the managers would take it forward from the HR.
My
Are
point
we
is
keeping any?
my manager's appraisals and ratings depends upon how his team is doing, how his team is conducting himself, how they are demonstrating at the workplace. Is there any marginal improvement or quantum leap happened? If there is a quantum leap, probably I'll elevate the concerned manager himself at 2 different levels.
That is business or both? Business
Both.
and
I'm
non-business?
talking about both.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ajay, you've got some.
But Sukrit, I think his kind of organizations might be in minority, right? Frankly speaking, because majority of the organizations will be making their people go through the leadership development programs, but not measuring. This is what I have personally experienced, because once you train, there is no program which is put in place to support, to help them implement, because that makes the whole difference. If you assign projects, if you assign coaches to people, right, and help them in implementation of those ideas, that makes the difference. Again, you provide training, but then you don't help them change the mindsets, right? The basic ingredients of which are instrumental in making a change at the workplace are not focused. So mere training program is not going to help. So I think there are a lot of ifs and buts. There is no one straight answer to it. But this, which Deepak has explained, I think this is one of the ways.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether it's really gamification option, but I can talk about an IT company where the CEO is very passionate about training, and we were doing some training for him for his set of leaders. So what he did was that they have an internal dashboard. So everybody was, at the end of the training, everybody took away 3 things that they were going to do for the next 6 months. And every day they had to put it, so just by clicking on a little button, there was a red, orange, and green. Did you do anything about it today? You just click the red, green, and orange. And on your profile, it started showing whether you're on red, green, and orange. And he ran that for 6 months. And again, it was very simple. We used to have a lunch meeting each time. So he would show it up on his screen that, this one is today leading and that one is today leading. That's the best I've seen of it. But honestly speaking, metrics aren't really so much in place. And the only little thing that I say, and I was reading this somewhere and I loved it, was that,